From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Deposed Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, sues the IGP, DSS, as well as the Attorney General of the Federation and Kano State for alleged illegal detention. Federal government gives conditions to integrating ASUU's alternative payment system to IPIS as both parties begin negotiations to end the two-week warning strike by the university lecturers. House of Representatives holds special session on the plight of out-of-school children in Nigeria as part of measures towards finding solutions to challenges of poverty, insurgency in the country. And death toll from coronavirus in Italy climbs to over 1,000 as the country's foreign minister expresses optimism that his country will get over the emergency soon. Plus, you'll see business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, Central Bank rules out possibility of Naira devaluation, says current foreign exchange reserves still robust enough to meet local demands.
And on sports news tonight, Manchester City's Champions League match with Real Madrid and Juventus' game with Olympique Lyon billed for next week postponed over coronavirus concerns.
And from Abuja, APC faction concludes plans for party's National Executive Committee meeting without its national chairman, Adams Oshiomhole, as another faction secures court order to either participate or stop exercise from holding.
The deposed Emir of Kano State, Muhammadu Sanusi II, has filed a suit before the Federal High Court in Abuja, seeking an order for his release from what he describes as post-dethronement detention and confinement. Alhaji Sanusi was initially taken to local government area in Nasarawa State before being relocated to Awe, where he has allegedly been detained in an apartment in the town. His team of lawyers, led by Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Lateef Fagbemi, filed the suit today before the Federal High Court, Abuja. In an ex parte motion, Mr. Sanusi is praying for an interim order releasing him from confinement and restoring his rights to human dignity, personal liberty, freedom of association and movement in Nigeria. Listed as respondents to the application are the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of the Department of State Services, the Attorney General of Kano State and the Attorney General of the Federation. No date has been fixed yet for hearing of the application. Meanwhile, the Nasarawa State Governor, Abdullahi Sule, today visited the deposed Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, in Awe local government area of the state. The governor and his entourage were received by the Emir of Awe. Journalists were prevented from taking photographs or videos of the visit, and the government has also declined any comment on the matter. About 30 personnel of the Police Mobile Force, the Department of State Security Service, are providing security for the deposed Emir of Kano in Awe town, Nasarawa State. Obviously, security is intensified around the area and people are not allowed to park cars near the house or even go close. Contrary to reports that the Emir has been relocated to Lagos State, the Emir is still in our local government area and many visitors from Kano State alongside locals were sighted outside the house. And to other stories now, negotiations continue between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, to resolve the two-week warning strike embarked on by the Umbrella Union of University Lecturers. Among the reasons for the ASUU warning strike are the non-implementation of their 2009 agreement with the federal government and the enrollment of its members into the Integrated Personnel Payroll System, IPPIS. ASUU is opposed to the IPPIS and is instead proposing the university's Transparency Accounting System, UTAS, a payroll system developed by the universities, which they say addresses all the deficiencies in the IPPIS module. Addressing journalists after a meeting with ASUU leadership in Abuja, the Minister of Labour and Employment says the federal government has given some conditions for the striking lecturers to consider. Meanwhile, the ASUU president insists the strike continues until the union consults with its members.
Discussions were open, and both sides realized that we are working for our country, and that whatever decision, whatever arrangement that we put in place will be for a better Nigeria. You already know that ASUU have a platform which they are developing called UTAS, and we have had some preliminary agreements on what is to be done to accommodate the two systems. And ASUU have now to get back to their members, consult the executive committee first, and then the generality of their members, so that they can agree on the modus operandi of trying to couple the two systems.
Well, from the discussions we had, we've agreed that we will go and consult, that the proposals that came up, we cannot pronounce on them until we consult with our members.
Well, let's go to perhaps another level of education. The House of Representatives, they're proposing an amendment to the National Youth Service Act to compel Youth Corps members to be posted as teachers during their service year. This is part of resolutions of the House after dedicating the entire plenary session today to the issue of out-of-school children. The lawmakers describe the situation as a ticking bomb if urgent measures are not taken. Our correspondent Terry Kumi has the report.
On this issue, very fruitful, lengthy discussions. Thank you. And
it's not a regular plenary session in the Green Chamber. The 13.2 million out-of-school children aged 6 to 14 in the country is a concern for the House of Representatives and has been listed as the only item on the order paper.
The appearance of education access.
In the Speaker's opening statement, he captures the importance of education.
An enlightened education gives hope and the confidence that through the studied application of the human mind and human ability, individuals can remake their existence and make their world better.
Lawmakers describe the situation as an infringement on the fundamental human rights of children.
The parents should be made to be responsible. Let there be sanction for any parent that is found wanting in the area of our children going back to school or being enrolled in the school.
This is very sad, and we are told today 13.2 million of them. I want to emphasize that not one of these children are out of school by choice.
Also disturbing to the lawmakers is that out of the 13.2 million out-of-school children, 69%, according to a 2018 UNICEF report, are in one part of the country, the north.
It's a huge demography that if we don't do something about this, it's all going to consume a lot of us. People have been saying it's a ticking time bomb. No, that bomb that is ticking has already exploded.
What you think is the Almajiri system has been bastardized because of the number that has become so huge that the malams or the alaramas are not able to manage. So don't look at it from a negative perspective, please, honorable colleagues.
The lawmakers believe that there are glaring solutions before the country which should not be restricted to the federal government.
If each and every one of us can attend to our out-of-school children in our various constituencies by at least taking some part of our quarterly allowance to sponsor those children that are out of school.
This House should consider immediately an amendment to the NYSC Act to mandate youth corps or encourage them on a program of teaching.
Part of the resolutions of the House is for each member to organize a town hall meeting with their constituents at the end of the month to sensitize them on the importance of education. The House on its part is to organize a public hearing to ascertain the factors that could be responsible for school dropouts and why children are not being enrolled in schools. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Into a virus that has taken the world by storm. Here in Nigeria, the federal government is advising Nigerians against traveling to countries with high record of coronavirus, namely China, Japan, Italy, South Korea and Iran. But the Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Hanire, stated at a meeting with members of the diplomatic community in Abuja, the government has no plans to impose a travel ban on those countries for now. According to the minister, there are currently only 2 confirmed cases of the virus in Nigeria, which are the index case and his primary contact.
Health officials at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs screening those attending the meeting with members of the diplomatic community, where the Ministers of Health and Foreign Affairs briefed the international community on the measures the government is taking to curtail the spread of COVID-19 and the new visa policy.
Through the highlights of the...
It is the first time the federal government is briefing the diplomatic community on its handling of the spread of COVID-19 since the index case that was reported on February the 27th, 2020. The Minister of Health informs the gathering that Nigeria still has only 2 confirmed cases and that the index case will soon be discharged from the hospital.
We confirmed and reported the first case in Nigeria on the 27th of February by way of an Italian consultant who arrived from Milan through Lagos. He has since been under care at the Infectious Disease Hospital in Lagos. And we have continued to test his viral load. He is doing very well. We are ready to discharge him as soon as the viral load is within acceptable limits.
The World Health Organization on Wednesday declared COVID-19 a global pandemic as death tolls hit 4,291 from 118,000 reported cases across 114 countries as at March the 11th, 2020.
The National Emergency Operations Center.
The Minister of Health raises the red flag for travelers going and coming from any of the endemic countries, which include China, Italy, Japan, South Korea and Iran.
Nigeria has not yet placed any travel restriction or ban, but has strongly advised against non-essential travel to countries with high level of transmission, which we define now as China, Japan, South Korea, Italy and Iran. We also routinely require travelers from these countries to be in isolation for 14 days after entering Nigeria.
The representative of the Controller General of Immigration also uses the occasion to explain the federal government's new visa policy, which provides visa on arrival for all members of the African Union as well as tourists from across the world.
Outside Nigeria, COVID-19 has claimed over 1,000 lives in Italy with about over 15,000 confirmed cases. Despite the jump in the death toll, Foreign Minister says he hopes his country will be the first in Europe to get over the emergency. He also adds that the measures imposed in the first area of the outbreak are proving effective.
Around the world, measures are increasing in a bid to curb the spread of the coronavirus. In Italy, where most public places have been placed on lockdown, even airports are affected. Rome's International Fiumicino Airport is virtually closed for business. The usual bustle of activities is silent, with counters and offices closed. Over in Spain, travelers have been trying to book last-minute flights back to the United States after President Donald Trump announced travel restrictions from Europe, disrupting the travel plans of tens of thousands of people, hitting already battered airlines and further straining ties with the EU.
Well, it kind of ruined my travel plans. I arrived here yesterday, and so in 24 hours everything has changed pretty quickly, so unfortunately it's too hard to predict at this time, so it's better for me just to return home.
The EU has disapproved of the US decision to impose a travel ban on European countries.
The European Union disapproves of the fact that the US decision to impose a travel ban was taken unilaterally and without consultation. The European Union is taking strong action to limit the spread of the virus.
China has also criticized the US for blaming it for worsening the global impact of the pandemic. It says such irresponsible behavior will not help the US endemic efforts. Meanwhile, the death toll from the coronavirus has jumped in Spain. Official figures from the health ministry show 84 people have died from the disease, an increase from 47 on Wednesday. It says the country now has 2,968 confirmed cases of the coronavirus. The entire government is having to test for COVID-19 after the country's equality minister, Irene Montero, tested positive for the coronavirus. Mexico has confirmed 4 new cases and Cuba its first 3 cases of the coronavirus.
In part 2, after the break, we'll have more on COVID-19, especially the Federal Ministry of Finance efforts in that regard. Plus, President Buhari says the return of our Gungu Fishing Festival and Agriculture Fair in Kebbi State is a sign of improved security and investment opportunities. Please join us again.